Thank you so much for joining us on the Dwelling Show. I'm your host, Ola Dantes. I've got Dwaine Clarke with us today. How you doing, man?
I'm really good. Really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, and I would love your energy. So thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure. Let's jump right into it. So obviously I know you a little bit. I see you on LinkedIn here and there. I know you're doing a lot of cool stuff. But for our listeners who might not know you, can you just tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you've been doing, and kind of what you've been doing lately, actually?
Absolutely. So I'm husband, dad of two here in Connecticut, and just loving life. So I do a couple things. So I'm in the investment brokerage space, where I do single tenant net lease investments for passive investors, as well as I have a passive investors club, which is on the private equity side. So we work with a lot of different sponsors and different asset classes. But yeah, bread and butter. Most of the stuff which I'm really known for. People like to call me the mailbox money guy because I just kind of focus on kind of passive investments. And I got into that field because I started on different tracks of real estate, from flipping houses, owning small rental properties, property management, and the brokerage. And eventually I ended up finding a mentor that was actually my client that owned a whole bunch of real estate, but he owned a Walgreens pharmacy. And at the time, I had no idea that people can actually own that. I thought Walgreens owned and operated their buildings, but actually they like to lease, like many other tenants, and it's cheaper for them to operate that way. And he was the landlord of it, and Walgreens paid all the bills, so they paid the taxes, insurance, maintenance, the cam, everything. So it's completely hands off, and I had like no idea that you can do that. So I went out on a journey through the help of him to learn everything I could possibly find on it. At that time, I also was a broker, so I decided to kind of focus my attention to help other investors to get into this type of asset class. So I've been doing that now for almost over 8 years. And then from there, I spun off to do my passive investor club that focuses on other assets, so we can kind of be very diversified and not have all of our eggs in one basket. So kind of in a nutshell, that's kind of how I started out.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you mentioning that. Triple net lease, right? So for like just really folks that don't have any idea about this asset class, just kind of walk us through a little bit. You have already, but why would somebody lease and pay everything? Like, what's the, for somebody listening to this for the first time, they might think, I don't understand that. Why would the tenant do that? Or
Mhm.
why is this structured this way?
Yeah, exactly. It's in essence is them if they went out and bought and owned the real estate themselves, they'll be taking care of everything anyway. But from a ownership perspective, that for them leasing is just a lot more easier and cheaper for them to operate. Because you don't can imagine that Walgreens would own thousands of locations nationwide. They're not in the real estate business. They're in the operating, selling prescription drugs, and working with clients to kind of get them more healthy. And that goes the same for your local McDonald's, your local Chick-fil-A, or the Dollar General. And then, if you, of course, that's another discussion to have, like the franchisees. Some franchisees actually own their real estate and operate it. But for the most part, most businesses that you see that we do our banking, our eat our food, get our burgers, we do our lunch and all that stuff every single day. They actually lease, and then we have the benefit of actually owning these properties and getting the benefit of them taking care of the operations of the property, which is they usually call the lease structure absolute triple net lease. So like every N of the N is a portion of the responsibility that the tenant takes care of. You can go a little bit deeper, and there's other lease structures like double net, where some of the ownership structure is the landlord takes care of a little bit. But for the ones that I like to talk to people about, and most people are attracted to, is the absolute, where the tenant takes care of everything. So it's a really hands-off investment. It's a really benefit as well, because you're not limited to deals that's in your backyard. So you're out in Houston, I'm here in Connecticut. Traditionally, if you were just kind of like a small landlord, or kind of like a real big player, you will buy something that's maybe in your local marketplace. With a absolute triple net lease, you get to take advantage of all of the properties nationwide. So you find the best deal with the best tenant, best location, and you focus on buying that, knowing that they're going to take care of everything, and you don't have to kind of do anything.
You're
And
just
most
collecting checks.
you just collecting checks. You can be, and that's what I was attracted to because my client, he owned a whole bunch of properties. He had, property managers for some of his other stuff, but his main bread and butter was the net lease investments, and his lifestyle was, hanging out, going to the beach, a lot of family stuff. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. So I, kind of structured my whole business to get out of fix and flip and the small rental stuff that I had to constantly have some type of responsibility for on a day-to-day basis and really focus all my attention on that. And I was glad I did that. And that was over 9 years ago. And just taking it to the next level ever since.
So the way I kind of see our interview here is going to be, kind of one down the path of your passive investors club and then on the brokerage side, right?
Hmm.
A lot of people struggle to reach out to brokers and build broker relationships. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But if there's an investor thinking, wow, Dwaine, I've never heard of triple net lease, maybe this is the first time they've heard of it, and they want to go out and maybe start to do, what you did in the beginning. Can you kind of walk us through from a tactical perspective of what they have to do to buy one of these things? I mean, how hard is it? How easy is it? What is the path to take?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's all the same kind of for buying into commercial real estate, but I always advise people to kind of first step back and then, find out what are their goals. Because for net lease, there's a whole bunch of different types of tenants. There's different lease terms. There's locations. There's different guarantees of the lease. So there's many different layers that you have to consider before jumping in. But usually, when I get a call from investors say they're interested in this asset class, I first say, as far as like the type of return you're looking for, as far as the how long a lease term you want. So, once we get the answers to those questions, then I kind of talk about the different types of tenants that kind of match up well for that scenario. So, for example, we just sold a brand new construction 7-Eleven gas station and convenience store. That was a 15-year lease, fully brand new construction. But the return on that, the cap rate was a 4%. Some people are not attracted to a 4%. Maybe they want 8% or 9%. And then there's also ones that we did was a Dollar General that was like a 6.5%, which is more attractive as well. But a little bit less in term, a little bit older building. So it really comes down to the particular investor's needs and wants and kind of their goals. And then I can kind of, point them in the right direction to say, maybe you should consider these types of tenants. But overall, my advice has always been the same as far as you need to get an essential tenant, which is, going through a pandemic. A lot of businesses were shut down, wasn't able to operate like, sit down restaurants. So I always say, essential businesses, tenants that's always going to be able to withstand, different market cycles, like needs based, fast food and, and retail. People need to get groceries and milk and bread and toilet paper and things like that. Those are good tenants to be in. And also, one of the main thing is that they don't get any competition from e-commerce. Amazon's really known to be wiping out businesses. So you need something that is able to people need that can drive to still and and get their essential items. So as long as they have those main elements, and then we look at, of course, like you as a real estate investor, the real estate, how's the traffic, how's the demographics, what's the household income, is there jobs in the area? So we look at it from a real estate perspective. So once we start checking off many of those boxes, then we can start talking about the numbers. On average, the sales that we're doing are like the $3 to $5 million range. So they're not like something that you can just say, "Hey, I'm just going to invest 100,000 and be able to own something." So we look at different many elements to make sure that this type of investment is a good fit for you.
Okay, yeah, I mean, so a lot of kind of similarities with what we do, multifamily syndication with
Exactly.
AAA. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna jump over to the brokerage side. So if I'm somebody looking at getting involved with triple net lease, and I'm looking out to brokers in my market, trying to get their attention, trying to get them to send me deals, but I'm a new investor, right? I don't have any track record in triple net lease, right? But I'm learning, right? As a broker, what do you like to see from those that are just trying to get into the game?
Yeah, just really just educating yourself for what we do, because we work exclusively with buyers. So we educate the buyers and kind of let them know what the process is of making offers and find out what's on the market, just so they have that correct expectation of what's out there. Because I don't like to then send them a property and they're saying, "Well, this is a four cap. This is not going to make me as much money as I expected." So we want to make sure that they're fully educated, and even if they decide to work with us or go out on a market to go look at deals, that because a lot of times you can see some properties on like LoopNet or Crexy and all of these different marketplace, and you know kind of get excited and call a broker, and then in some instances it's not the best practice for the broker, but sometimes they don't call back or they say the property is under contract. They typically move pretty quickly. So if you're educated and of course working with a lender, a mortgage lender, and you kind of have all of your elements in place that you can be able to kind of make a move, I think that's definitely the right step to be on like the broker short list for them to say, this person is capable, educated on the process, and then able to kind of move forward. Some of the deals I've done, we bought and we put the offer and close within 30 to 45 days, like really a quick, short scenario, like all cash. So sometimes some of the sellers are expecting some of these buyers to come in at that, and for some people that may not be comfortable for them because it may be a too quick for them. So therefore, that's why the education and possibly having like a firm like us to kind of walk you through the process so it doesn't feel extremely intimidating. So those are definitely things. If you're educated, know the process, familiar with it, comfortable with it, then you're definitely ready to start getting listings and kind of taking it to the next step.
Fantastic. So another thing I want us to talk on is, so you've talked about, kind of your deals and how you've helped people get into the business. So maybe talk about one of the deals that, as a case study that you really liked, or maybe you helped someone, or maybe you guys made the most money. Just give us a case study of a standard triple net lease. Give us the backstory, kind of how did you find the deal for them, and how did they fund the deal?
Absolutely. Well, we've done a lot of transaction. We worked in 40 states, over $250 million in sales, from some from $15 million in transaction size. The lowest one would probably be like 1.5 million. The one that we just recently closed was a 7-Eleven gas station, Houston, Texas. It was actually New Caney, Texas. Really strong developing marketplace. Worked directly with the a developers agent. Ground up development. And it was through a 1031 exchange. We work with a lot of exchange buyers. And because from that standpoint, they're looking for a property, but then they have a short time frame. So for if your listeners not too familiar with the process, once you sell your property and your funds are with your accommodator, you have about 45 days. We have 45 days to find a replacement property. And then once you find your replacement property, you have 180 days to close it. So sometimes, given your time frame and you finding a suitable property that makes sense, things can get kind of tight. I'm dealing with a lot of people that own businesses that have other responsibilities, and by the time you blink, you're like 30 days in, and then you still haven't found a replacement property. Then you have to negotiate with these different multiple properties, and then finally settle on one that you want to make a move on, and then financing or cash or whatever it is. So this new K project, brand new construction, we went through probably 50 different properties just to make sure this was the right fit, had the right lease. I'm very familiar with 7-Eleven gas stations, do a lot of transactions through them to make sure that this lease made sense for the client and his exchange. Once we got through to all of the details, we was right at with the lender, kind of a little bit of hiccups there. We was able to make sure the transaction closed right before his 180-day deadline, and he was very satisfied. I mean, it was a little bit of sweat off the brow, but we was kind of glad that we was able to put it together. And he's very happy and looking forward to his next sale that hopefully be able to have the opportunity to help him with that transaction as well.
Awesome. All right. So, I mean, we can keep talking and talking, about triple net lease. Really fascinating investment strategy. Looked at it like, I don't know, five years ago. Wasn't as sexy as
Yeah,
multifamily,
right.
but I still find it really fascinating though. That said, so I think we're definitely dwelling into the quick rounds. These are going to be quick questions, quick answer. You ready?
Sounds good.
All
Ready.
right. All right. First question. What makes you, Dwayne, unique? What is that differentiating factor that separates you from the next guy or the next girl?
I would say just I care as much as like I'm a owner. So I put a lot of care in it. And if the client is not sleeping, I'm not sleeping as well. I try to do everything to the best of my ability. And if I can't, you know, get an answer to something, I always, look out to find it. So I just put a lot of care in it. And I'm also an owner of Net Lease as well. So I kind of put myself in the same shoes. I want to make sure that I'm walking them through to the process and giving them honest credentials. And of course, me growing up into my career, starting out, the fix and flip and kind of focusing on this niche. I have a family now, so now I do different things differently. So net lease for me is, it's not for everybody. You had mentioned you're more in the multifamily, which is a little bit different niche. This is more for people that want like a capital protection play or capital preservation play, not so much on the higher return on investment. They just want steady long-term income. So I'm dealing with a lot of people that are older in their career or just way too busy. They don't want to deal with the landlord responsibilities, and they're okay with the lower income stream. So me as an older person with now two kids and a wife, and I kind of have a little bit different mindset than I was when I was 25, when I was able to go into the house flipping game and deal with contractors to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Now I'm like, I'd rather just have the Walgreens, and even though it's a bit lower return, I'm okay with that. So I understand that now, and so I have a lot more empathy for people that's in those shoes. And sometimes kind of focus on something that's not the glamour, sexy stuff, which is good. We also do multifamily and other stuff in my past investors club, but I definitely have a nice liking for this niche right here.
What was the last book that you read, and what was the one thing you picked out from that book?
It was I forget the actual title. It's by Robert Ringer. It's like Millionaire Mindset or Millionaire Routine or something of that sort. I got the wrong title, but it's basically taken through Robert Ringer, which I fully resonate with because he was also a commercial real estate broker, like independent like myself, and gone through the trials and tribulations of being an entrepreneur and dealing with an industry of kind of these larger big branches like the Colliers, Marcus Millichap, and SRES, and all of those big branches, and with their big marketing budget, and me as a like a solopreneur with kind of a small team, I'm just kind of fighting and trying to get my way into the marketplace. So from his book, we learn about kind of tactics of not being intimidated, and then kind of really being perseverance and strong-willed, and just also having a nice morning routine, starting 4 o'clock in the morning, having to set certain things that you do all the time consistently in order to become successful, and not thinking of it, just taking it one step at a time, being consistent, even if it's small steps, just making sure that you move forward each and every day.
Final question. You've got your brokerage. You're keeping busy. You're amassing your assets bit by bit, spending time with family. What do you do for fun?
For me, it's just all family stuff. We do a lot of game nights. We watch a lot of movies. We're up in Connecticut. The weather is starting to turn, so we're looking forward to the nice warmer weather. Park days. Each Friday for me, we have a Daddy and Jordan, or Daddy and Christina day. Today was a little bit different. We'll be going to a family friend's house and then kind of hanging out. So it's really just like family stuff. When I was younger, it was of course going out, hanging out with the fellers, going out and hanging out. But now, priorities change, and your interest levels change. I have different friends that have different hobbies, and look forward to fishing or hanging out and just having like a nice casual talk, over a nice dinner, a nice drink or something like that. So that's what I like to do for fun.
Nice. If somebody is listening to this and thinking, "Wow, I like this Dwayne guy. I want to connect with him," what's the best place people can reach out, get to know you better?
Absolutely. So I'm all in all of the social media networks, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can just kind of type in my name, Dwaine Clarke, or if you have an interest or say even have questions on net lease investing, just curious about it or just want to be able to get involved, that's buynnnproperties.com. Or again, you can reach me on any social network to connect with me, and look forward to seeing you there.
Dwayne, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I appreciate it as well. And all the best to you and the family, and talk to you soon.